Well, hello, friends. Mark Holmes here, and as always, thank you guys for watching, commenting, and subscribing to the Joe B Sports Report. Without you guys, this literally does not work. Well, I'm actually at an MRI. My wife's getting an MRI on her knee. Apparently, knee injuries and knee problems just happen to run between her and I both. She's had her knee worked on a couple of times as well, and been having a lot of aches and pains on it. So I'm just sitting here waiting. But I was sitting here thinking. An interesting thought. The Dallas Cowboys right now have been completely rebuilt. We'll see if that turns into Super Bowl wins or not. But after talking this morning about the 2015 season, how that season going south ended up being one of the big impetuses that ended up bringing the Dallas Cowboys to where we are now, where we're one of the more talented teams in the NFL. I'm not saying we're the most talented by any stretch of the imagination, but you can definitely see that the fact that we have four guys that will be basically in the top five in pay between DeMarcus Lawrence, probably Zeke Elliott, Amari Cooper, and Dak Prescott, and that homegrown talent, that core group of guys that are so young. You look at this in comparison to where we were in the 90s, because clearly we had better talent than anybody else, and that more than anything else ended up leading us through to those three Super Bowls in 4 years. But when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, the way that they're run now, how this organization has been so good at drafting, staying true to the course, not going for the quick fix, being better with managing the cap. You know, it used to be every year we were $25 million over the cap. We would end up restructuring guys, kicking the can down the road, and reaching for people. We'd make moves for a TO. We'd give up 2 draft picks for a Roy Williams and things. We would do things that were trying to be the big fix. But now the Dallas Cowboys, they have built this team largely through the draft, adding a few pieces with free agency, but not being that team that does stuff in that first week, where you're seeing the 10, 15, $20 million a year salaries that are coming through. And I look at this and say, this is all Stephen Jones. Think about this. It was that 2014 draft where business was usual. We had been going through the 8-8 seasons and everything else. We realized that Tony Romo had the best of his career behind him. And he'd start thinking about what's going to happen down the road. And of course, there was that young gun, that Johnny Manziel. Show me the money. And Jerry Jones was enamored with him. Because, see, Jerry Jones was always that guy that would go for flash more than substance. And Jerry Jones, they were reporting at the draft that Jerry Jones was considering moving up to make sure he got Johnny Manziel. And everybody was guaranteed. Adam Schefter and all those guys were guaranteed that Johnny Manziel was going to be a Dallas Cowboy. And Jerry even admitted after that draft that he was kind of mad because Stephen Jones took that draft card from his dad, Jerry. And I believe that moment, that time, that draft was the impotence, the beginning of Stephen Jones' season control over the Dallas Cowboys. Because when you look from that time, instead of going for Johnny Manziel, and God, would have that have been a nightmare, we drafted Zach Martin, the best guard in football. And you cannot compare those two draft picks. Had we drafted Johnny Manziel, oh my God, we would have been screwed, quite frankly. Stephen Jones made the right pick. And Stephen Jones, I always say that pay attention to what Stephen Jones says. Stephen Jones doesn't talk a whole lot, but when he does, you can believe it. Jerry Jones, now don't get me wrong, Jerry Jones still is key at the Dallas Cowboys, but he's kind of stepped back, and it's Stephen Jones doing more and more. When the whole issue of Des Bryant came up, Jerry, of course, Des is part of the family stuff. It was Stephen Jones who had that blank look out there when it was Zeke Elliott coming off of that suspension. It was Stephen Jones that was saying that we cannot have these distractions. It's Stephen Jones who is the heavy guy for the Dallas Cowboys. Like I said, I don't know if the Dallas Cowboys will win Super Bowls or not, but you can look back at that 2014 draft. That is the moment. That is the time that things change. And I'll give you another thing here, too. I want you to think about this season. You think about how this season started off, how it sucked. We were 3-5, and things were looking bad. The way it finished up, you had to feel good about it. If you're Jason Garrett, you got to say, you know what? We were awful, but we turned it around. We became a playoff team. We got a playoff victory. And he was feeling great about himself. You know, when he was doing that first press conference after the season, like, yeah, you guys thought that this was going to be the end of me. You guys were talking about firing me. But guess what? I made it to the playoffs, and I won a game. So I'm feeling good. We're not changing anything. But it was, hold up. Whedon Boys, Stephen Jones, that said, hold up. We're not satisfied with that. Are you satisfied with that? And it was Stephen Jones that made Jason Garrett let go of Scott Linehan. And that's where there's a new sheriff in town with the Dallas Cowboys. And that's where you have to look at it and say, you know, he's being hard-nosed on these negotiations with the players. You know, maybe that's why we're still getting Dak's contract together. And what you have to understand, too, because a lot of people are saying, oh, they don't have faith in Dak. They haven't got the contract done. Well, what the Dallas Cowboys are trying to do is they're trying to figure out how they can get as many of these players signed for as little money as possible. Because technically, we only have about $19 billion. I'm sorry. I apologize, but my wife woke up in the middle of the night last night in so much pain that she was literally crying with her knee and stuff. Every time she turned over, it was like I couldn't go back to sleep. So it's kind of like hitting me now that I'm just sitting here doing nothing but waiting. But it's Stephen Jones who's gotten that cap in order, and they're going to go ahead and try and get the best deals possible with these players. And let's be honest, the Cowboys are fortunate that we're in a position where we have some great players that need to get paid. And there's my beautiful wife. She's now done. So we can get up out of here. But that's my thoughts on the new sheriff in town with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm Mark Holmes, and well, I'm going to go fight some traffic and get home. See you soon.